Heavyweight boxing. It's always been the division that gathers the most attention. There's been so many great fighters along the years, from knockout specialists to boxing tacticians. Big Time Boxing presents their opinion of the top 10 heavyweights of all time. Mike Tyson is the first on our list at number 10. Nobody can deny that Iron Mike in his prime was one of the most devastating and exciting fighters of all time, becoming the youngest ever heavyweight to win a world title, which is a record that will be hard to beat.
In boxing.
With incredible head movement, foot speed and knockout power in both hands, Tyson dominated the heavyweight division from the mid-80s, becoming the undisputed heavyweight champion along the way until he shock lost to James Buster Douglas in 1990. He managed to recapture the title one more time in his career and had many more big fights before retiring in 2005. At number 9 is Jack Dempsey. Jack Dempsey was the first fighter to break the $1 million gate barrier. An aggressive fighter and brutal puncher who captured the title against the 6'6" giant Jess Willard. Dempsey held the heavyweight title for 6 years until the shock loss to Gene Tunney. A cultural icon and trailblazer in the world of boxing, Dempsey definitely deserves to be in the top 10. Number 8 is Evander the Real Deal Holyfield. Evander Holyfield started his boxing career as a cruiserweight, for which he was hugely successful and became undisputed champion before deciding to step up to heavyweight. Holyfield was known as boxing's warrior and had many great fights, the trilogy against Riddick Bowe being hugely entertaining, and also the 2 fights against Mike Tyson, demonstrating Holyfield's strong mental resilience. Holyfield managed to capture the heavyweight titles a record-breaking 4 times before hanging up his gloves in 2011. At number 7 is Lennox Lewis. Lewis had a reputation as being very methodical and not willing to take too many risks, but when the time came, he would put his foot on the gas to blow fighters away. An opposing 6'5" with a huge reach, Lewis would use his long reach to his advantage, but also utilise the thunderous overhand right to take out his opponents. Lewis was also one of the select few to have beaten every professional fighter he has ever faced, and retired as heavyweight champion. Number 6 is Smoking Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier was a formidable power puncher who would bob and weave looking for a gap to unleash his ferocious left hook. An Olympic gold medalist, Frazier was the first man to defeat Muhammad Ali in the fight of the century. He would face Ali 2 more times, with the third in the punishing heat of the Philippines. With a high knockout ratio and fighting in the golden era of heavyweight boxing, there is no doubt that Frazier deserves to be in the top 10. Big George Foreman takes number 5 in this top 10 list. George Foreman was an Olympic gold medalist who, after turning pro, amassed a massive 38 wins with no defeats before challenging for the world title against the unbeaten Joe Frazier. Foreman would destroy Frazier inside 2 rounds to claim the championship of the world. He would famously lose it in the Rumble in the Jungle before going into retirement to become an ordained minister for over 10 years. Foreman would shock the world when he announced he was making a comeback at age 38. Many thought at this age it would be impossible to get anywhere near the title, but Big George defied the odds when knocking out Michael Moore to reclaim the title at the age of 45, to become the oldest heavyweight to win a world title. Number 4, the Eastern assassin Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes is often overlooked when people talk about the best heavyweights of all time, but Holmes had so many tools in his arsenal. His jab was legendary, and he would use this to dictate fights, to keep fighters at his distance, breaking them down to secure the win, often in the second half of fights by TKO. Holmes held the title for an incredible 7 years and carried on boxing until his early 50s before finally retiring. Number 3. Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber. Louis held the world heavyweight title for over 11 years. A hugely popular fighter who fought in one of the most highly political fights against Max Schmeling. Louis had an incredible dominance over the heavyweight division with 25 title defences and nearly all the victories by way of knockout. Louis retired in 1949, but financial difficulties led him to a comeback and eventually a blockbuster matchup against the undefeated Rocky Marciano. Louis was past his prime here though, and Marciano won in the 8th round. But there's no doubting that Joe Louis is one of boxing's all-time greats. Coming in at number 2 is Rocky Marciano. Marciano is the only heavyweight world champion to retire undefeated with 49 wins. He also has one of the highest knockout ratios, with 86% of his wins coming by way of knockout. What made Marciano so special was that he only stood at 5'10" and was often massively outweighed by his opponents. But for what he lacked in stature, he more than made up for with his toughness, heart and his trademark punch, the Susie Q. And the number 1 spot goes to the greatest, Muhammad Ali. It probably comes as no surprise that big time boxing has chosen Muhammad Ali as the best heavyweight of all time. Not just a boxer, but also widely regarded as one of the most significant and celebrated figures of the 20th century. Ali burst onto the scene with his charismatic personality, which was something we had never really seen in boxing.
I'm the greatest thing that ever lived. I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with me, can't nobody be against me. I shook up the world.
Ali would often belittle his opponents, giving them derogatory nicknames, and even predicting the round that he would beat his opponents.
I saw Sonny Liston a few days ago, Cash.
Ain't he ugly? He's too ugly to be the world champ. The world champ should be pretty like me.
He could back this up though, with his unbelievable hand speed and footwork. He faced a who's who in the golden age of heavyweight boxing, and often would win against the odds. None more so than against George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle.
This man depends on getting this man in the first 1 or 2 rounds. If he don't do that, he's frustrated. Stick him with left jabs and right crosses, tie him up and box him, and you'll retire. I'm the this man is going to whoop George Foreman, and I'm going to whoop him of all places in Africa, in the Congo, where the Lumumba boys are.
He would carry on fighting well into his late 30s, and he captured the title a total of 3 times in an amazing career. This is Big Time Boxing's list, but how does your list compare? Please let me know in the comments below what your top 10 would be, and also please don't forget to like and subscribe.